the Going Solo Network, and this show is Divorce, Dating, and Empowered Living with Rosalind Sedacca. As many of you know, I'm the founder of the Child-Centered Divorce Network, a divorce and co-parenting coach, and the focus of this show is helping you get valuable information to support you before, during, and long, long after divorce in all kinds of ways that are relevant for you in your life and especially in protecting your children. And I'm very excited today to have a guest who's going to be talking about a topic that none of us want to be thinking about, but it's impossible to move ahead in life without understanding our finances. And so Donna Cates is a wealth builder. She's a financial strategist and the best-selling author dedicated to empowering women through life's transitions. And with more than 24 years of experience as a certified divorce financial analyst, Donna specializes in helping women rebuild their financial lives and thrive after divorce. So welcome, Donna Cates.
I'm delighted to be here. Thanks for having me.
My pleasure. This is International Child-Centered Divorce Month, this being January 2025. This is our 19th year of commemorating International Child-Centered Divorce Month, and it's a time when I speak to divorce experts about all facets of ways to help families get through the divorce experience and transition after divorce in the best possible ways. And it's very important that we start fresh after divorce and make the best decisions, especially financially, because as you all know, we are limited in the possibilities of what we're capable of doing unless we have our finances really straight. So Donna, let's start with this question. Obviously, divorce is often financially and emotionally draining. So can you tell us what are some of the first steps that women should take to rebuild their financial foundation?
I'm happy to address that. So, when you think about it, when you're married, regardless of whether both parties are working or not, you have a household that looks like this. And divorce is literally going to split it typically down the middle, but you end up with a part and your spouse ends up with the other part. So, the first step in taking stock of your financial situation is knowing what your cash flow looks like. If you don't know where you're starting from, it can be very difficult to determine if you're living within your means and how you might be able to save for the future for all those things that are important to you and your children. And then post divorce, it's essential that all of the assets that you were awarded in the divorce are actually transferred into your name and hopefully in the most tax efficient way possible. Once you've got everything in order and in your name, now we can assess what you have. And of course, I encourage you to have the help of a financial advisor to evaluate that because someone like me can help you understand, is what I'm doing today and how I'm invested today going to help me achieve the things that are important to me for my family going forward. So you get to drive the train on all of those financial decisions, but you don't have to go it alone.
Yeah, I don't think anyone should go it alone because every decision that you're making at this particular time is going to be impacting so many other things that happen in your future for yourself, for your children, for the entire family. And it's something that you want to make sure that strategically you're paying attention to. So let's talk a little bit about strategies that women can use and women and men as well, because I'm sure all of this is relevant for men to do as well. The strategies to stabilize finances after the divorce, and especially can you talk about some of the most common pitfalls that inevitably happen too often, overspending, neglecting retirement savings, things like that, that can really make a huge impact on moving forward in our lives a few years from now when we realize we've made that mistake. So what are some of those pitfalls we can avoid?
The first and most important thing is to recognize that this is probably one of the most emotional periods of your life, and it's okay to feel the emotions, but we really need to separate the emotions from the money stuff. With stability, building that stability means avoiding emotional spending and focusing on essential expenses. So I always encourage women and men to first establish an emergency fund because life is going to happen, whether it's the air conditioning going out or a tree falling on your house. Life is always happening. We need that emergency fund. But the big thing is to evaluate where you're actually spending your money, whether you're getting alimony, child support, or just supporting yourself through earnings. We need to know, what do you have coming in and where's the money being spent? And one of the biggest tips I can make is to separate your expenses into two categories. You've got your essential expenses, and then you've got those nice to have expenses. Now, and I'm going to say you've got to be really, really critical when you're creating that list, because getting your nails done or going out to dinner, 2 or 3 times a week, those are nice to haves, not have to haves. So focus first on all of those things that you must have. You've got to be able to pay your mortgage or your rent. You got to cover the utilities. You got to have food on the table for yourself and your kids. You got to have that health insurance. All the things that must be paid, to keep that roof over your head and your children fed. That's key. Now, everything else you should consider discretionary spending. And no one is saying don't spend money on these things. It's just being very aware of how you're spending your money is supporting your values. Because the thing is now, as a single person, you're solely responsible for your day-to-day living expenses, for continuing to build those retirement savings, because most of us do want to retire at some point in the future. So you've got to do all of the things that you were doing before or not. Now's the time to, pull up your big girl or big boy britches and make sure that you're doing the things that are going to enable you to do, to live life and enjoy life today, but to also build and protect for the future.
It makes total sense. And this is also, I imagine, a teaching moment, because if you're divorcing and you have children, they are watching you manage money, manage the way you're running your life post-divorce. And it's important for them to understand we have to live within our means. Maybe we used to do this, but now we're going to change the way we spend money, the way we celebrate the holidays, certain other things in our lives, vacations. We may have to be honing in or looking at some things differently financially. And I imagine it's a great time for children to be understanding some of the parameters that money doesn't grow on trees, and it has to be managed. Is that correct?
Absolutely. And I will tell you, the really important thing as parents is to not do the blame game or the finger pointing or, well, your dad can pay for that, or, we don't do that at our house. I think we have to be very, very sensitive and set boundaries and expectations for the household that you're in right now. And then to say, okay, well, that's at your dad's. That's absolutely fine. That's his choice, and that's the way he's doing things. But here, this is what we're doing, and this is why we're doing it, and why it's important that we all are on the same page. I think having that conversation, because kids only know what we're sharing them or what we're
Yes.
exhibiting, right? So if we don't tell them and explain, they're just going to see what we're doing. So don't be reactionary. Actually take proactive action with regards to explaining how you're managing your financial well-being. And, the fact that just because we're not doing X, Y, or Z anymore doesn't mean that we're not still having fun.
That's right. I think your answers are so important for people to listen to and understand. And we all talk about having a financial education. A lot of people pre-divorced didn't need to be as worried about the finances. Things may, in some cases, be changing dramatically for you. And so, what tools do you recommend that women especially look to improve their financial knowledge so that they don't make mistakes they regret?
I will tell you that Google is your friend. So if you want to make smart and informed decisions about your money, I would say first just Google that exact sentence and see the plethora of tools that will come up. You're going to have everything from workshops, books, budgeting apps, all the things out there. But the thing is to expose yourself to information. My word of caution is to not necessarily take financial advice from your neighbor or someone else because we don't know the financial realities of their life. But if you're educating yourself, now you're going to be in a position to ask more informed questions and to have a really effective conversation with the financial professionals that can help you achieve the things that are important to you.
Oh, I think that's really valuable for people to sink in and really understand. And related to that, this is a time to be looking towards the future in ways that we may not have a few years ago. And for many women, they're re-entering the workforce. Some have been working all along. Some are changing or making a shift in the kind of work they're doing, working more or working less, depending on how they're balancing their family dynamics and all of that, and now adjusting to a single income. So there's a lot of things to take into account. And we there are certain goals that I know that we all have to have, like retirement planning and other things. So can you address some of the ways we can look towards the future and make decisions now that are really going to be proactive and positive as we're moving ahead?
Absolutely. And planning is the key because, we all, if we're going on a vacation, we don't just get in the car and drive there or fly there. We have to come up with a plan. And the same with your financial well-being. Having that plan is going to allow you to first address your immediate needs. And we talked about this when we were evaluating where we're spending our money. We know what our immediate needs are so we can make sure we've got safe money set aside to cover those. But when it comes to the long-term needs, this is where it takes discipline on saving and literally being able to define what it is that you want. Especially when you're divorcing, I think a lot of times we immediately go to, okay, I'm not going to be worried about my retirement planning right now because I want to make sure I can put my kids through school, the education. Well, the reality is that the children can get loans. Nobody really wants to have a loan, but they are able to get a loan to go to school. You, on the other hand, will not have anybody to borrow money from to pay for your retirement. So knowing now, what you can be doing, even if you're just setting aside $50 a week, a month, something that, and we've earmarked that and we know you're paying yourself first, that's going to allow you to not live in fear of never having enough. And that's the key: consistency, putting money into your investment strategy, even when the market is going like this, and having a solid plan that you're revisiting on an annual basis. I think that's essential.
Yeah, well, that certainly makes sense. And it's funny that these things are so logical when you're talking about it, but we get so caught up in the drama of our situations and all of the emotional things that are happening around making sensible decisions that very often we just put off or neglect or misunderstand a lot of these things, and the logic behind them goes away, and we make decisions too quickly, or without thinking them through. And that's when I find so many people are caught in regret because they haven't understood what the options were initially before they're under stress and panic. And now, of course, they're dealing with something on a much more difficult level. So that's why I'm so delighted to be talking to you today and getting your insight and advice. And I think this is a good time for me to ask you, how can people access you and your services?
You can visit me at my website, which is moneymatterswealth.com. com. You can follow me on all the socials. I've got a LinkedIn account and I also have a professional Facebook account and I have a divorce Facebook account called Divorce Divas Alabama. So you can follow me on any of those places and don't hesitate to reach out. If there's anything that I can help with, I offer free services and resources. And I'm really excited about the International Child Centered Divorce resources that are being made available to you this month. So be sure to check those out as well.
Well, thank you so much. You're one of our featured sponsors. And can you share with us what your free gift is for International Child Centered Divorce Month?
I certainly can. It's an ebook, easily downloadable, not too long, but it's Surviving the Storm, 5 financial tips and that to help you make smart decisions as you're navigating divorce and beyond.
Oh, that's great. Well, thank you so much for supporting what we're doing here with International Child Centered Divorce Month and playing a part in it. And I think a lot of people are kind of confused about certified divorce financial analyst, what that means, and why this designation has come into being, because I think it's very, very important. Many of us have worked with financial planners and financial analysts over the years, and there's something special about what you do because of the divorce, because of preparing for the divorce, going through the divorce, preparing after the divorce. So what is it that you do in this position as a divorce financial analyst that makes you special and stands apart from just other people who are experts on finance?
I'm so grateful that you've asked that question. The What we do as a certified divorce financial analyst is to help you understand what the impact of any of the financial decisions that you're negotiating in your divorce, what the immediate, intermediate, and long-term impact will be for you. So we're creating different scenarios of your divorce settlement. So let's say that your spouse comes to you and says, "Hey, I'm willing to offer you this. I'm going to buy you out of the house so I can keep the house, and then you're going to get to keep X, Y, and Z." I literally take that information and say, if you accept this settlement offer, this is going to be your financial reality the day the divorce is finalized, a year from now, 5 years from now, 10 years from now. So now you're not making blind emotional decisions. You literally know the financial impact. And I'll share one really quick story with you that was impactful. A woman was being offered her spouse's 401k account. The 401k was actually in a specific product called an annuity. And I don't want to get in the weeds, but when you have an annuity product, if you are retitling that account, you don't just say, "Hey, I'm going to slap a new owner's name on it." You literally liquidate that account and then move it into another product. So this woman, after the fact, discovered that what she thought was going to be $150,000 ended up on an after penalty basis only being about $120,000. And her ex-husband was not really happy when he found out that he was going to be responsible for 100% of the taxes on that account because it was liquidated. So that is something that could have been avoided had we looked at all of the moving pieces before the divorce was finalized. So that's what we do is we're kind of devil's advocate. We're showing you, yeah, this feels good. You want to keep the house, but can you really afford to keep it? All of the analysis that needs to be done before those decisions are made because they can't be undone once the divorce is finalized.
Yes, you're not kidding. And speaking about, I think that might be one of the biggest areas that you work in as a divorce specialist, financial specialist, is the big decision. Can I afford to keep the house, stay in the house? Do I have to sell the house in order to move on so that me and my ex are living in two different environments? Can you speak a little bit more about how one sanely makes that decision?
Absolutely. And it's tragic, especially right in this moment, because interest rates are so much higher now than they were just 5 years ago. So let's say you've got a couple and you own a house. Doesn't matter whose name's on it. Or if you're on the deed, you both own it because you're married. Now we're going to have to decide, are we going to sell the home and split the proceeds from the home? That's the cleanest and easiest thing to do. But most people don't want to disrupt their children's lifestyle. So if they don't have to sell the house, they want to keep it. So emotionally speaking, a lot of women will say, I'm keeping the house without giving any consideration to whether or not they can even get the mortgage refinanced into just their name,
Mm.
let alone the impact of that new mortgage with that higher interest rate. And the third piece to that is if they're keeping the home, they're going to have to buy out their spouse's share of the equity. So, how are they going to do that? Using non marital assets. There are so many moving pieces to that discussion. You definitely have to look under the hood.
Yeah, and you talk about it so clearly. It's so easy to understand what you're saying. So I could see you're doing this. You've done this before. You have experience, and you understand. I think it's important. I always tell my clients, is frightening as this divorce experience can be, and so overwhelming with all the details, you're not alone, and you're not the first one having the divorce. This It's important for them to realize this has been going on, and you and I both face the same kinds of things over and over again. No two divorces are identical, and so everyone's situation is definitely unique, and we customize our work to their situation. But there's also the reality that lots of other people have been where you've been, and there's a comfort in knowing that you're not the first person who's dealing with this challenge or answering that question and finding a way out. We are used to working with these kinds of things, and it I find a lot of people feel comforted just to know that their situation isn't crazy and unique. Lots of other people have gone through this. This will pass, and you will be able to move on and enjoy life again. So they need to know they're being supported every step of the way, right?
Absolutely. And that's the thing is if you can focus on this opportunity, as sad and upsetting as it is, you're actually being given an opportunity to create something new. So if you go into it in a looking forward and positive, what can I do to make the best of the circumstances, you'll come out a lot better ahead emotionally and financially, all of the things.
Well, thank you for that. That it's so important to understand that. And because I'm the Child-Centered Divorce Network, my focus is always on the well-being of the kids. So what decisions do you deal with regarding the children and the parents' decisions that a financial expert can help with?
I think there are so many pieces. Number one, when we're getting child support, whichever spouse is paying it, child support only covers the necessities. So when you get child support, that amount of money is not going to cover all of the things like the horseback riding lessons or the swimming lessons or being in band. So it's essential that when you're negotiating divorce, that you keep those children's expenses, not just today's, but what they're going to have between now and the time they reach age of majority. What are those expenses likely to be, and how are we as parents going to pay for those? So I've seen people say, hey, if it's an extracurricular activity, we're going to split it 50-50. I've had people say it's going to be based on our income range. So if you've got one party that, is 70%, they're going to pay 70% of those expenses. And we have to use tools like Our Family Wizard is a great way to kind of keep track of where the money's being spent and what it's being spent on so that you can clearly communicate that to one another. But that's a big issue is that child support is never going to be enough to cover all of the living expenses of your children. And another thing too is that College, who's paying for college, is not addressed in your divorce decree. And that's because most kids, by the time they reach college age, they are no longer minors. So the court is not going to tell you as parents who's responsible for paying for college. That does not mean that you, as responsible adults and parents, can't determine how you're going to address that. You can ask that to be put into the divorce decree, but it just behooves you as responsible parents to have that conversation and know how that's going to be addressed because everybody wants their children to have a good education.
Oh, of course. So well said. You've really been very clear in explaining so many things that people are always confused about. So thank you. It's been a pleasure talking to you, Donna. And I want to remind everyone that January is International Child-Centered Divorce Month. And we've put up a special website that's available all through January, but only in January, that provides free resources, gifts, support, help for divorcing and divorced parents before, during, and long after the divorce process. Donna's gift is part of that, and you'll see her on our page. And I want you to visit this link in January. It's divorced with an ED, divorcedparentsupport.com. That's divorcedparentsupport.com. Just enter your email address, your name and email address, and you'll instantly get to the page that has all the gifts and information. And you could come back as often as you want throughout the month and click on other gifts and take advantage of all of them. They're from divorce experts on in many countries around the world, and divorce experts who are really passionate and caring about families and divorce. And that's the difference, because the people that I work with are only people who really care about the family dynamic, and that's what makes these experts so special. So thank you all for listening. Thank you again, Donna. You were wonderful to speak with.
And I appreciate you putting this good, positive energy out in the world for us, Rosalind.